All right, so we've got Caesar in Orlando. Thanks for waiting.
Hey, how's it going, Matt, and how's it going, Joey? Just want to first congratulate you guys for what you're doing. I try to look at you guys at YouTube every time that I can.
Oh, thanks so much.
Your producer told me to make my point quickly because it is a topic that you guys already covered before. So I basically want to talk about, the morality issue, the moral values. I've been having this argument with my religious friends, and they keep coming up with where you get your morals from. How do you tell right from wrong, if you're an atheist? And I know that secular morality is superior. It's just that sometimes I fall short on the arguments. So I would like your take on that, if you don't mind.
Well, you can tell them that you get your morals from the same place that they get their morals, which is from your parents. So we're social creatures, and we transmit moral values and the ability to make moral judgments from one generation to the next. So, it's not something you read out of a book. It's something you develop the ability to do, this idea that you can make moral judgments. You develop that ability by having your current morality challenged at different stages in your life. And
right.
So if your morality is never challenged because you just read the rules in a book and you follow the rules, then you're stuck in a pretty elementary stage of morality. And that's one of the things that makes secular morality superior to religious morality, because we don't read a book and get our morals out of a book.
I see. Yeah. I've been beating them, in all the other arguments, the cosmological argument, the so-called fact on the Bible. But when it comes to right and wrong or good and evil, they seem to have like an upper ground on me. But I've been, trying to get more reason into the conversation. So, okay.
Yeah.
No,
well, here's one thing I think is kind of interesting. So Matt and I are friends. So why would I need a book to tell me that I'm supposed to care about my friend?
Right.
And if you need a book to tell you that you're supposed to care about your friends, there's something wrong with your morality.
Yeah, the topic of morality is something that I actually find is considerably easier than a lot of people make it. And I think religions have gone through this process of sort of muddying the waters in the discussions. I don't know if we'll ever get to where you can actually see me on camera, but if we did, you'd be able to see that I'm trying to be as nice as possible about this difficult issue. I don't need to see myself to talk. It's fine.
No, I understand. And
so one of the things about secular morality is that Jen had mentioned you get it from your parents primarily. I think that if you want to go deeper than that to what we're actually talking about, I've given a talk about the superiority of secular morality. It's online. It's not every version of it is completely correct. I've modified my thinking on a few things over the years, but there's some good starter information there. One of the key things is that secular morality has us as the focus, whereas religious moralities, there's no guarantee that we are the focus of anything. If morality is about the consequences of our actions and how they affect us, and whether or not we're doing harm to each other, whether or not we're helping societies benefit and grow, then that needs to be the focus. And with religious moral systems, to the extent, and I would argue that religious moral systems aren't systems at all. They don't provide you a mechanism by which to evaluate new situations. They can only tell you about the situations, thou shalt not steal. Okay, that's really neat. And I happen to agree that I would label it immoral to steal, generally speaking. But that's not very robust. It doesn't give me much in the way of context. It doesn't talk about potential exceptions. It doesn't consider situations. And most importantly, it doesn't tell me why. It just says, this is, thou shalt not steal. Well, why shouldn't I steal? And it's when you get into those questions of why, then the possible answers are, well, because God said so, Or if you like some of the precepts, instead of it being because God said so, their answer would be it's because God isn't a thief, and so you're trying to be in line with God's character. When I think that that doesn't benefit us in any way. If instead we look at, hey, what are the consequences for myself if I steal something? And I'm not just talking about getting caught. And what are the consequences for others if I steal something? And how does this benefit or detract from society? There's this idea of thinking globally and acting locally. Well, one of the base questions that I ask myself when I'm trying to figure out is something moral is, if everyone else in the world did what I just did, would we be better off or worse off, or the same? I mean, is it something that there isn't a moral evaluation for?
Right. Yeah. And I would like to ask you something. Because it was just last week when I got this question posed to me. I was talking to an ex-friend of mine. I don't think he's my friend anymore, but he, when I was trying to explain my views on why I was an atheist, he threw this question out of the blue, like, where do you get your morals from? Mm-hmm. Where's your moral compass? I kind of paused a little bit, and I must admit that I didn't know how to answer it in a very concise, direct, and fast way. But I just say to him, hey, man, I just think what I do, and I try to consider, the consequences of my actions. I mean, it has to come from that. But at that point, I was, I gotta be honest, I was mumbling a little bit because I couldn't think and talk as fast as he was, trying to interrupt me. So.
Well, I mean, if you go through what Matt was describing, which is, this is not something, I guess, that I think theists do go through this process most of the time, but they also fall back on this, pointing to their rule book and say, this is where I get my morals. That's not really where they get their morals, but it's such a convenient thing to point to and say, here, this is my absolute standard.
Yeah, I mean, how would I answer a question like that, which is, in a very short matter?
So let me give you two things. First, when people ask me where I get my morals from, I've already answered this rather succinctly by saying I get my morals by a considered evaluation of the consequences of my action and how it affects myself and others. The ultimate authority for what is or isn't moral are the facts about reality. We are physical beings in a physical universe, and there are just facts about what happens. If I hit you over the head with a hammer, there are consequences of that, and that's how we evaluate. But when it comes to dealing with the people who are asking you, how do you get your morals, or where do you get your morals from, I tend to like to ask them, where do they get their morals from? Because by and large, they'll say, oh, well, they come from God. Okay, well, why do you accept what you think God has said? We'll set aside the question of whether or not God has ever said anything, but why do you consider that good? Oh, well, God's good. How do you know that? Oh, because he wrote it on my heart that he's good. Well, how did you figure out that God is the good one and let's say Satan is the evil one? How did you make that distinction? Because if their answer is that they're determining that God is good because God has told them that he's good, or God has written his moral standard on their heart, then wouldn't it also be true that if Satan wrote his moral standard on their heart, that Satan would be viewed as good? Anybody is going to be judged perfect by their own standard. Yeah,
that's actually pretty good. I'll try to find this episode on YouTube and take notes.
Cool.
But man, thank you so very much, and I'm just glad that I got through this time, and I hope that you guys keep doing what you're doing, and I hope more people keep waking up like I did. Thank you so very much, guys.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's come up a lot.
Yeah.
And even when I engage with theists, it's like they don't always get it. I mean, it's come up in several of the debates. We've raised that point. I think it's a good one that some people are going to grasp. If they're having difficulty in any conversation like this, one of the things that you can do is take a step away from the actual subject matter and use an analogy. Like, hey, I got this yardstick, and so I measured my living room, and it turned out to be that it's 4 yards. Well, how do you know that yardstick is correct? Oh, well, because it's based on this, because this is kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
And if somebody started selling a whole, if we started selling a whole bunch of yardsticks that were based on some other standard, then everybody would be measuring wrong and thinking that they're measuring right. There needs to be something firm that you appeal to, and you can't just judge something by its own standard by saying, this is my yardstick. Let me hold it up to the yardstick for the guy who measured out this yard, and look, they're the same.
Yeah.
Because you don't know whether or not he's right. But.
Yeah. Well, and one of the points I was going to make about this whole exercise of examining whether you think something is moral or not, that exercise is really valuable because it clarifies exactly why you think something is moral or not, and it gives you practice in evaluating moral actions.
I don't think the topic is overly difficult. I think the process is difficult.
Yeah,
and then we are lazy. It's easier to rely on, this is wrong because my folks said so or God said so or whatever.
And so, I think the process of examining these questions is extremely valuable. Especially when you have a kid growing up and they're learning how to decide if something's right or wrong. There's no substitute for that. So, reading it in a book, that doesn't get you there.
And it brings up another example that I've used before, which is out there, and I don't have to repeat myself over and over on the show, but I'll do this quick. If you have two kids who are out at dinner and they're misbehaving, and they leave, and for one of the kids, the guardian says, okay, if you behave the next time we go out to dinner, you'll get dessert, and if you misbehave, then you'll get a spanking or something. And the other kid, they sit down and explain to them that, hey, your actions have consequences on these people around you. How would you feel to engage some empathy if you were sitting over there and somebody was doing what you did? And this kid now has an understanding. When you take them both out to dinner, they're both going to behave, but which one is more moral? Which one has a better understanding of the why behind the action? And I have a big problem with kind of passing on this carrot and stick mentality that people take away from their religion and pass on to their kids because they don't think it builds
because one
good
kid,
character.
As soon as the carrot and stick are removed, he's likely to misbehave again. The other kid now understands why he should behave. Yeah,
my reason for behaving at dinner is so that Mom will buy me dessert. Mom's not here today, so why the hell should I behave? Yeah, it's just that seems so obvious that we can do a better job, and it's why the Bible and other books aren't good moral guides. But.